Dive into Chapter 6. Angelica's story continues with thrilling choices and intense drama. Don't miss the epic finale that will leave you speechless. Summary: 5 years after marriage, Angelica lives in a luxurious penthouse but feels isolated. Confronting her past and the emptiness of her present, she realizes true happiness eludes her among the glamour, leading her to a poignant vow to reclaim her joy. Chapter 6. The Gilded Cage.
5 years had passed since that fateful day on the beach, and Angelica's life had undergone a dramatic transformation. Gone were the modest means and humble aspirations of her youth, replaced by a world of unparalleled luxury and opulence. Angelica now lived in a sprawling penthouse apartment, its lavish interiors a testament to the wealth and privilege that had become her reality. Plush carpets, sparkling chandeliers, and artwork that likely cost more than Alex's entire life savings adorned the space, creating an environment that felt more like a museum than a home. As Angelica stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, her gaze swept across the glittering skyline, a sense of detachment settling over her. This was the life she had fought for, the life she had sacrificed so much to attain. And yet, the more she immersed herself in this gilded cage, the more she found herself longing for the simpler days of her past. Turning away from the window, Angelica made her way to the expansive walk-in closet, her fingers trailing over the rows of designer gowns and accessories. She paused before a particularly striking emerald green dress, the one she had worn to the Dom 2 concert all those years ago. The memory of that night was bittersweet, a reminder of the choices she had made and the price she had paid. Shaking her head, Angelica pushed the dress aside and continued her perusal, her eyes alighting on a pair of diamond-encrusted earrings. She slipped them on, the weight of the precious stones a familiar sensation against her skin. With a sigh, she turned to face the full-length mirror, her reflection revealing a woman who was the embodiment of luxury and privilege. And yet, behind the carefully curated facade, Angelica felt a growing sense of unease. The endless rounds of lavish parties, the fawning attention of her husband's wealthy associates, the constant pressure to maintain a flawless appearance, it was all beginning to wear on her. The glamour that had once seemed so alluring now felt like a gilded cage, trapping her in a world that no longer felt like her own. As Angelica descended the sweeping staircase and joined her husband for another evening of high society festivities, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of longing for the simple joys she had once shared with Alex. The laughter, the quiet moments of comfort, the genuine connection. All of it felt like a distant memory, buried beneath the weight of her newfound status and wealth. Her husband, a well-respected businessman nearly twice her age, greeted her with a practiced smile, his arms snaking possessively around her waist. "My dear, you look absolutely radiant this evening," he purred, his gaze sweeping over her with a hint of ownership. Angelica forced a smile, the familiar flutter of discomfort stirring within her. "Thank you, darling," she replied, her voice laced with a practiced sweetness. As they mingled with the other guests, Angelica found herself going through the motions, her mind occasionally drifting to the life she had left behind. The evening dragged on, a blur of expensive champagne, idle chatter, and calculated compliments. Angelica found herself nodding along, offering the expected responses, all the while feeling increasingly disconnected from the world around her. It was as if she had become a mere prop in her own life, a beautiful ornament to be admired and displayed, rather than a living, breathing individual. As the party drew to a close and her husband ushered her into their sleek, chauffeured limousine, Angelica stared out the tinted window, watching the city lights blur past. The familiar ache in her chest had only grown stronger, a constant reminder of the sacrifices she had made. "You seemed a bit distracted tonight, my dear," her husband remarked, his hand resting on her thigh in a gesture that was meant to be comforting, but only served to make her skin crawl. Angelica forced a smile, her mind racing for an acceptable response. "Forgive me, darling. I suppose I'm still adjusting to the whirlwind of social engagements. It's all quite exhilarating, but sometimes I find myself longing for a quieter moment." Her husband chuckled, his grip tightening ever so slightly. "Ah, my dear Angelica, you've come so far. It's only natural to feel a bit overwhelmed at times. But you must remember, this is the life you've chosen, a life of luxury, status, and the admiration of all who lay eyes on you. Angelica nodded, her gaze drifting to the passing cityscape. Of course, darling. I'm truly grateful for all that you've provided. It's simply an adjustment, that's all. As the limousine pulled into the private garage beneath their apartment building, Angelica felt a familiar sense of unease settle over her. This was her life now, a life of opulence and privilege, where her every whim was catered to and her beauty was celebrated as her most valuable asset. And yet, as she followed her husband into the lavish penthouse, Angelica couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The walls that had once seemed to glitter with the promise of a glamorous existence now felt like a prison, trapping her in a world that no longer felt like her own. In the solitude of their bedroom, Angelica allowed herself a moment of vulnerability, her fingers tracing the delicate features of her face in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was undeniably beautiful, her porcelain skin and striking emerald eyes the envy of countless women. And yet, behind the carefully crafted veneer, Angelica saw a glimmer of the girl she had once been, the one who had longed for something more than just material wealth and status. Turning away from the mirror, Angelica sank down onto the plush bed, her mind drifting to the one person who had truly understood her, the one person she had chosen to leave behind. Alex's kind, steadfast face flashed in her memory, a bittersweet reminder of the life she had once shared. As she lay there, the weight of her choices settling heavily upon her, Angelica couldn't help but wonder if the gilded cage she now inhabited was truly worth the price she had paid. The lavish comforts, the endless admiration, the trappings of a bohemian celebrity lifestyle, none of it seemed to fill the void that had taken root in her heart. Closing her eyes, Angelica allowed the tears to flow freely, her quiet sobs muffled by the soft, expensive fabrics that surrounded her. In the stillness of the night, she found herself longing for the simple joys she had once taken for granted, the warmth and comfort of Alex's steadfast presence, a distant, elusive memory. The realization that she had traded her true happiness for a life of luxury and privilege was a bitter pill to swallow, and Angelica found herself grappling with the weight of her choices, wondering if she would ever be able to find the fulfillment she had so desperately craved.
Pulse on, can't slow down, in the lights we glow. Feel the rush, take the crown, to the beat we flow. No stop, can't let up now, the sound is all we know. We are, alive in the glow. We are, alive in the show. We are, alive in the flow. We are alive, feel the power grow. Hands up, no backseat, under stars we rise. Feel the bass in the heat, lose sense of time. Can't stop in this heartbeat, feel the rhythm, close your eyes. We are, alive in the glow. We are, alive in the show. We are, alive in the flow. We are alive, feel the power grow.